Michael walked briskly through the long, fluorescent-lit hallway of his office building, clutching a worn leather briefcase to his side like it was the only thing holding him together. He was in his mid-40s, with lines of stress carved into his face, the kind you get not from age alone but from years of worry. His coworkers passed by with polite nods, but Michael's eyes stayed low, fixed on the ground, because he knew that at any moment he might run into him. That him was Ethan. A man just a few years older, late 40s, maybe early 50s. Tall, broad-shouldered, always walking with a confidence that seemed to silence every room he entered. His sharp gray suit, his commanding voice, and the way people seemed to either respect him or fear him made Ethan feel larger than life. People whispered that he was cold, that he was ruthless in business, that you never wanted to get on his bad side. And for Michael, those whispers weren't just gossip. They were a reminder. Years ago, Ethan had been the one to call Michael out on a mistake at work. A mistake that left Michael feeling humiliated in front of others. Since that day, he carried a quiet but heavy fear whenever Ethan's name was even mentioned. As Michael walked past the office lobby, he suddenly froze. There he was, Ethan, standing at the front desk, speaking to the receptionist. His deep voice carried across the room, calm but firm. Michael's heart raced. He quickly turned his head, muttering under his breath, "If anyone could ruin me, it's him." The fear was real. The avoidance was constant. And Michael had no idea that the very man he feared most would soon play a role in his life he never could have imagined. But what happened in Michael's past that made him carry this fear for so long? And why did he believe Ethan had the power to destroy him? Years before this moment, Michael had been just another hardworking employee at the same company. He was ambitious but anxious, always trying to prove himself. One day, he'd made a costly error in a client proposal, something that could have lost the company thousands of dollars. When the mistake came to light, it was Ethan, then a senior executive, who had spotted it. In a packed conference room, in front of colleagues, Ethan had spoken up. "This section isn't accurate. We can't present this to the client." He didn't yell. He didn't mock. But to Michael, already sensitive and insecure, those words cut deep. He heard judgment, not correction. Humiliation, not guidance. From that day on, Michael carried a silent story in his head, that Ethan despised him. That Ethan had exposed him, embarrassed him, and would forever see him as incompetent. And as the years passed, rumors in the office only made it worse. People would whisper, "Don't mess with Ethan, he'll never let you forget your mistakes." Another would say, "He's the kind of boss who'll cut you down without thinking twice." Each rumor added another brick to the wall of fear Michael had built around himself. He avoided meetings where Ethan was present. If Ethan entered a room, Michael would find a reason to leave. He convinced himself that Ethan was not only cold, but also waiting for him to fail again. It became a cycle. Michael's fear made him distant, and his distance made him look weak, which only confirmed his belief that Ethan didn't respect him. But Michael's fear wasn't just going to stay inside his head. Soon, life was about to throw him into a crisis that would test everything. And in that moment, he would be forced to face the one man he spent years running from. It all came crashing down one rainy Thursday evening. Michael sat at his kitchen table, bills scattered across the surface, his hands buried in his hair. His wife had left 2 years ago, tired of the financial instability, and now it was just him and his teenage daughter, Emily. She was his world. But now, Emily was sick. What Michael thought was just the flu had spiraled into something more serious. The doctor said she needed urgent treatment, tests, and possibly a hospital stay. Michael's insurance barely covered the basics, and the bills that piled up left him gasping for air. At work, things weren't any better. He had been late multiple times, distracted, his performance slipping. And then came the final blow, an error in a project that cost the company a major client. His boss pulled him aside, voice stern but exhausted. "Michael, we can't keep covering for you. You're suspended until further notice." Michael walked out of that office building feeling like the ground beneath him had disappeared. His job gone. His daughter, his finances, crumbling. And worst of all, he knew Ethan had been in the room when the decision was made. Ethan had seen him stumble yet again. As Michael sat in his car that night, rain tapping on the windshield, he whispered to himself, "He's going to use this. Ethan's going to finish me off. I know it." But what Michael didn't know was that Ethan was about to do something no one expected. Something that would flip the story on its head. The next morning, Michael dragged himself into the hospital, clutching his daughter's hand as she was admitted for tests. His face was pale, his eyes bloodshot from lack of sleep. At the billing desk, he hesitated, staring at the numbers on the screen. It was more than he could possibly pay. His credit cards were maxed, his savings gone. "Sir, we'll need a deposit before we can proceed," the receptionist said softly. Michael's voice cracked. "Please, just give me a little more time." And then, out of nowhere, a familiar voice broke the silence. "It's taken care of." Michael turned sharply, and there was Ethan, standing just a few feet away. Confident. But this time, there was no coldness in his eyes. He handed his credit card to the receptionist, who nodded and began processing the payment. Michael stammered, "Wait, why would you?" Ethan placed a hand on his shoulder. "You don't need to say anything. Just focus on your daughter right now." Michael's world spun. The very man he thought would crush him was now the one lifting him up. Ethan not only paid the hospital bill but also told the staff, "If there are more expenses, put them on this account." No questions asked. Michael's throat tightened. He wanted to argue, to refuse, but the desperation in his heart made him silent. He was stunned, confused, and overwhelmed with gratitude he didn't know how to express. But why would Ethan, the man Michael feared most, step in like this? What could possibly explain this unexpected act of kindness? That evening, after Emily was settled in her hospital bed, Michael found Ethan sitting quietly in the waiting room. For a long moment, Michael just stood there, torn between confusion and gratitude. Finally, he sat down beside him. "Ethan, I don't understand. Why would you help me? After everything, after all these years." Ethan looked at him, his voice steady but gentle. "Michael, you've been afraid of me for a long time. I've seen it in the way you avoid me. I know the rumors people spread, but I need you to hear the truth. I never wanted you to carry that fear." Michael frowned, still unsure. "But that day in the conference room, you humiliated me." Ethan shook his head. "No. I corrected a mistake because it was my responsibility to protect the company. But I never meant to humiliate you. You saw judgment where there was none. And the truth is, I saw myself in you. Years ago, I was the guy making mistakes. I was the one people doubted. And someone gave me a second chance. That's why I couldn't just stand by and watch you fall." Michael's chest tightened. For the first time, he saw Ethan not as a ruthless giant, but as a man who understood struggle, who carried his own scars, and who chose to show compassion even when people misunderstood him. But would this change the way Michael saw himself? Could he move past years of fear and assumptions, and accept this kindness for what it was? Over the weeks that followed, Michael and Ethan began to talk more. Ethan visited Emily at the hospital, bringing her books and snacks, quietly encouraging Michael whenever he looked defeated. Slowly, Michael realized that Ethan wasn't the man the rumors painted him to be. Instead of being cold, Ethan was simply misunderstood. He was firm, yes, but also deeply compassionate. And Michael, for the first time in years, began to shed the weight of fear that had haunted him. When Emily finally recovered, Michael found Ethan waiting outside her hospital room with a simple smile. "She's strong. Just like her father," Ethan said. Michael's eyes welled with tears. "I spent years fearing you, resenting you, and I was wrong. You've done more for me than I could have ever imagined." Ethan nodded. "Michael, fear and assumptions blind us. But the truth is, real strength isn't in tearing others down. It's in lifting them up." From that day forward, Michael and Ethan built an unlikely friendship, one rooted in respect, trust, and gratitude. And Michael carried with him a powerful lesson, not to judge people based on fear, gossip, or assumptions. Because sometimes, the greatest kindness comes from the very person you thought you had to fear the most. Moral of this story: true kindness often comes from the least expected places. Don't let fear or assumptions blind you from seeing the humanity in others. And if this story touched your heart, don't forget, kindness is powerful, and it can change someone's life in ways you'd never expect. If you believe in spreading love, compassion, and second chances, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs to hear this today. Because you never know, your kindness might just be the one thing that changes everything for them. And remember, we're not just telling stories. We're changing lives.